A hundred was an administrative division which was geographically part of a larger region. It was formerly used in England, Wales, South Australia, some parts of the United States, Denmark, southern Schleswig, Sweden, Finland, Estonia and Norway. Other terms for the hundred in English and other languages include wapentake, herd, herad, erith, harad or hunder, harder, satakunta or kilakanta and kihalkond. In Ireland a similar subdivision of counties is referred to as a barony, and a hundred is a subdivision of a particularly large townland. Etymology. The name hundred may be derived from the number 100. It may once have referred to an area liable to provide 100 men under arms, or containing roughly 100 homesteads. It was a traditional Germanic system described as early as AD 98 by Tacitus. Similar systems were used in the traditional administrative regimes of China and Japan. England and Wales. In England and Wales a hundred was the division of a shire for military and judicial purposes under the common law, which could have varying extent of common feudal ownership, from complete suzerainty to minor royal or ecclesiastical prerogatives and rights of ownership. Until the introduction of districts by the Local Government Act 1894, hundreds were the only widely used assessment unit between the parish, with its various administrative functions, and the county, with its formal, ceremonial functions in size. The term hundred is first recorded in the laws of King Edmund I as a measure of land and the area served by a hundred court. In the Midlands they often covered an area of about 100 hides, but this does not apply in the south, which may suggest that it was an ancient West Saxon measure which was applied rigidly when Mercia became part of the newly established English kingdom in the 10th century. The Hundred Ordinance, which dates to the middle of the century, provides that the court is to meet monthly, and thieves are to be pursued by all the leading men of the district. The name of the hundred was normally that of its meeting place. During Norman times the hundred would pay geld based on the number of hides. To assess how much everyone had to pay, a clerk and a knight were sent by the king to each county. They sat with the shire reeve of the county and a select group of local knights. There would be 2 knights from each hundred. After it was determined what geld had to be paid, then the knights of the hundred and the bailiff of the hundred were responsible for getting the money to the sheriff, and the sheriff to the exchequer. Above the hundred was the shire, under the control of a sheriff. Hundred boundaries were independent of both parish and county boundaries, although often aligned, meaning that a hundred could be split between counties, or a parish could be split between hundreds. Exceptionally in the counties of Kent and Sussex there was a subdivision between that of the hundred and the shire. Several hundreds were grouped together to form lathes in Kent and rapes in Sussex. At the time of the Norman conquest, Kent was divided into 7 lathes and Sussex 4 rapes. The system of hundreds was not as stable as the system of counties being established at the time, and lists frequently differ on how many hundreds a county had. In many parts of the country, Domesday Book contained a radically different set of hundreds from that which later became established. The numbers of hundreds in each county varied wildly. Leicestershire had 6, whereas Devon, nearly 3 times larger, had 32. Hundred courts. Over time, the principal functions of the hundred became the administration of law and the keeping of the peace. By the 12th century the hundred court was held 12 times a year. This was later increased to fortnightly, although an ordinance of 1234 reduced the frequency to once every 3 weeks. In some hundreds, courts were held at a fixed place, while in others, courts moved with each sitting to a different location. The main duty of the hundred court was the maintenance of the frank pledge system. The court was formed of 12 freeholders, or freemen. According to a 13th century statute, freeholders did not have to attend their lords' manorial courts. Thus other suits involving them would be heard in a hundred court. For especially serious crimes, here the hundred was under the jurisdiction of the Crown. The chief magistrate was a sheriff. and his circuit was called the Sheriff's Turn. However, many hundreds were in private hands, with the lordship of the hundred being attached to the principal manor of the area and becoming hereditary. Where a hundred was under a lord, a steward, the chief official of the lord of the manor, and a judge, was appointed in place of a sheriff. The importance of the hundred courts declined from the 17th century, and most of their powers were extinguished with the establishment of county courts in 1867. The remaining duty of the inhabitants of a hundred to make good damages caused by riot was ended in 1886. When the cost was transferred to the county police rate. Although hundreds had no administrative or legal role after this date, they have never been formally abolished. Administrative functions from the 11th century in England, and to a lesser extent from the 16th century in Wales, and until the middle of the 19th century, the annual meetings of hundreds had varying degrees of power at a local level in the feudal system. Of chief importance was their more regular use for taxation, and 6 centuries of taxation returns for the hundreds survive to this day. Groupings of hundreds were used to define parliamentary constituencies from 1832 to 1885. On the redistribution of seats in 1885, a different county subdivision, the petty sessional division, was used. Hundreds were also used to administer the first 4 national censuses from 1801 to 1841. By the end of the 19th century, several single-purpose subdivisions of counties such as poor law unions, sanitary districts, and highway districts had sprung up, which, together with the introduction of urban districts and rural districts in 1894, mostly replaced the role of the parishes and, to a lesser extent, the less extensive role of hundreds. Several ancient hundred names give their name to modern local government districts. Chiltern hundreds. The Chiltern hundreds are notable as a legal fiction, owing to a quirk of British parliamentary law. A Crown Steward was appointed to maintain law and order in the area, but these duties ceased to be performed in the 16th century, and the holder ceased to gain any benefits during the 17th century. The position has since been used as a procedural device to allow resignation from the House of Commons. Wapentake. Wapentake was the rough equivalent in the Danelaw of the Anglo-Saxon hundred. The word is possibly derived from a meeting place, usually at a crossroads or by a river, where one's presence or vote was taken by the brandishing of weapons. According to some authorities, weapons were not brandished during a Norse assembly but were allowed to be taken up again after the assembly had finished. It is also possible that it was just citizens who were entitled to possess weapons that were allowed to take part, an idea perhaps suggested by references in the Germania of Tacitus or current practice in the Swiss canton of Appenzell-Innerrhoden. The Danelaw counties of Yorkshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire, Northamptonshire, Nottinghamshire, Rutland and Lincolnshire were divided into wapentakes, just as most of the remainder of England was divided into hundreds. In Yorkshire, a Norse wapentake usually replaced several Anglo-Saxon hundreds. This process was complete by 1086 in the North and West Ridings, but continued in the East Riding until the mid-12th century. In some counties, such as Leicestershire, the wapentakes recorded at the time of Domesday Book evolved into hundreds later on. In others, such as Lincolnshire, the term remained in use. Although no longer part of local government, there is some correspondence between the rural deanery and the former wapentake or hundred, especially in the East Midlands, the Archdeaconry of Buckingham and the Diocese of York. White Directory for Lincolnshire, 94 describe the wapentakes as now of little practical value. Their potential functions had been taken over piecemeal by other units such as electoral districts, poor law unions and so on. The term ward was used in a similar manner in the 4 northern counties of Cumberland, Durham, Northumberland and Westmoreland. In Wales, the hundred replaced traditional units such as the cantref or canted, or camoche. Irish counties were divided into baronies. Nordic countries, The term hundred was used in Svealand and present-day Finland. The name is assumed to mean an area that should organize 100 men to crew 4 rowed war boats, which each had 12 pairs of oars and a commander. Eventually that division was superseded by introducing the harad or herd, which was the term in the rest of the Nordic countries. This word was either derived from Proto-Norse **hardrarether or Proto-Germanic **hardrarether. Similar to skip ride, a part of the coast where the inhabitants were responsible for equipping and manning a warship. Hundreds were not organized in Norrland, the northern sparsely populated part of Sweden. In Sweden, a countryside harad was typically divided in a few socken units, where the ecclesiastical and worldly administrative units often coincided. This began losing its basic significance through the municipal reform of 1862. A harad was originally a subdivision of a landskap, but since the government reform of 1634, land took over all administrative roles of the province. A harad functioned also as electoral district for one peasant representative during the riksdag of the estates. The heradsrätt was the court of first instance in the countryside, abolished in 1970 and superseded by tingsrätt. Today the hundreds serve no administrative role in Sweden, although some judicial district courts still bear the name, and the hundreds are occasionally used in expressions, e.g., Sjuhäradsbygden. It is not entirely clear when hundreds were organized in the western part of Finland. The name of the province of Satakunta, roughly meaning 100, hints at influences from the times before the Northern Crusades, Christianization, and incorporation into Sweden. As Kilekunta, hundreds remained the fundamental administrative division for the state authorities until 2009. Each was subordinated to Alani and had its own police department, district court and prosecutors. Typically, cities would comprise an urban Kilekunta by themselves, but several rural municipalities would belong to a rural Kilekunta. Following the abolition of the provinces as an administrative unit, the territory for each authority could be demarcated separately, i.e., police districts need not equal court districts in number. The term herad was in Norway between 1863 and 1992 used for rural municipalities, besides the term commune. Today only 4 municipalities in western Norway call themselves herad, as Ulvik and Kvam. Some Norwegian districts have the word herad in their name, of historical reasons, among them Krod-Sheridan Heradsbygd in eastern Norway. United States. Counties in Delaware, New Jersey and Pennsylvania were divided into hundreds in the 17th century, following the English practice familiar to the colonists. They survive in Delaware, and were used as tax reporting and voting districts until the 1960s, but now serve no administrative role, their only official legal use being in real estate title descriptions. The hundred was also used as a division of the county in Maryland. Carroll County, Maryland, was composed in 1836 by taking the following hundreds from Baltimore County: North Hundred, Pipe Creek Hundred, Delaware Upper Hundred, Delaware Lower Hundred, and from Frederick County: Pipe Creek Hundred, Westminster Hundred, Unity Hundred, Burnt House Hundred, Piney Creek Hundred, and Taneytown Hundred. Maryland's Somerset County, which was established in 1666, was initially divided into 6 hundreds: Mattapony, Pocomoke, Bocchettanorton, Wicomico, and Baltimore hundreds. Later subdivisions of the hundreds added 5 more: Pitts Creek, Aquango, Quaponco, Buckingham, and Worcester hundreds. Following American independence, the term hundred fell out of favor and was replaced by election district. However, the names of the old hundreds continue to show up in deeds for another 50 years. Some plantations in early colonial Virginia used the term hundred in their names, such as Martin's Hundred, Flowerdew Hundred, and Western Shirley Hundred. Bermuda Hundred was the first incorporated town in the English colony of Virginia. It was founded by Sir Thomas Dale in 1613, 6 years after Jamestown. While debating what became the Land Ordinance of 1785, Thomas Jefferson's committee wanted to divide the public lands in the West into hundreds of 10 geographical miles square, each mile containing 6,086 and 4 to 10 ths of a foot. The legislation instead introduced the 6-mile square township of the Public Land Survey System. Australia. In South Australia, land titles still record which hundred a parcel of land is located in. Similar to the notion of the South Australian counties listed on the system of titles, hundreds are not generally used when referring to a district and are little known by the general population. Cumberland County was also divided into hundreds in the 19th century, although these were later repealed. A hundred is traditionally 100 square miles.